while researching my doctoral dissertation on the Western European volunteers in the German Army and Waffen-SS. We had corresponded briefly before my trip to Europe, and without hesitation he opened his home to me on 2 separate occasions, and made introductions to facilitate interviews with some of the volunteers. He has, since then, assisted a host of scholars and writers and given film and video interviews on several occasions to recount his experiences, and above all to enhance the understanding of himself and his cohorts during World War II. It has been my privilege to participate in this publication of his chronicle for the first time in English. The unique ending of World War II influenced greatly its aftermath, as well as our remembrance of many related factors. Today, with the collapse of the USSR and the end of the division of Europe between East and West on ideological, economic, and military lines, the ongoing post-war history now has to be rethought. This also means that the recovery of memory can take place. Already underway in the 1960s, the younger generations have asked not only about the war, but also what happened after the war. What was the Holocaust about? What was collaboration? Who participated? The same for the resistance. Then there is the question of justice and how it has operated since liberation and war's end. These and more debates began in earnest in post-1989 Europe. Who did what to whom, and with whose help, served as a valid question not only for the war but also its aftermath, extending well into the 1950s. We now must consider matters of political justice, collective memory, the differences between resistance and collaboration, and the long-term social and political consequences of the war. No clear lines existed between collaboration and resistance, and various shades of gray remained. Although collaboration's usage today owes from this period, some other terms become more useful in explaining the experiences of the occupied countries: cooperation, collusion, compliance, and complicity, if we just stick to the C range. The punishments doled out to those found guilty also varied, from lynchings committed during the last months of the war to post-war sentences of death, imprisonment, or hard labor. In addition, there were penalties of national disgrace, loss of civil rights, government employment, pensions, and the imposition of travel restrictions, fines, and other administrative strictures. Not only a wide array of individuals received punishment, but also groups were held collectively responsible for what had taken place. Some ethnic groups were charged with crimes and treason and largely killed or expelled in the months immediately after the German surrender. Then there are the military tribunals held post-war, where the accused had to prove their innocence instead of the court proving their guilt. These purges and expulsions came in the aftermath of over 5 years of wartime mass movements and exterminations of other ethnic minorities. How the surviving societies processed the occupation and the return of the pre-war governments reflected various shocks with an acceleration of social changes wrought by the war and by pre-war conditions. Numerous states had experienced social upheaval before the war. Then came the war and either alliances with the major warring powers, occupation, or armed neutrality. Some countries were dismembered in the process, others expanded their territories. By using middle terms between collaboration and resistance, we can deal retroactively with the experience of war and occupation in Europe. The previous measure of post-war judicial actions we must recast as political justice. The resulting narratives of wartime stress and destruction were used post-war to justify the post-war states, as if those problems taking place before the war no longer existed. We can now see the 1989 collapse of Europe's walls, and in the aftermath, the USSR itself can only be explained if we remember pre-war, wartime, and post-war periods as a continuing process, a struggle toward an end not yet defined for us in 2015. Kenneth W. Estes. Preface. I am not writing my memoirs. I consider that word to be pompous. After those of Chateaubriand, Beaumarchais, and others, I would feel quite ridiculous. I might more modestly speak of chronicles, but they're too more illustrious.